we learn a tattva from them, some philosophical truth. Most importantly, they are there for us to learn life lessons. So, so it is said that when Krishna comes and performs pastimes, he does that for three reasons. He does that for his own pleasure, because he is Atmaram, he is independent. He does that to glorify his devotees, because they are dear to him. And then he does that to glorify the pastime, the event that occurred. And glorification of the pastime means that the glorious life lessons that are left behind. That what is it that is meant for us? What is it that we can extract from that pastime and inculcate in our own lives? So the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Narsingadev is widely known, and all of you are very familiar with it. So I'm not going to go into the pastime, but I'm going to discuss the what are the lessons in this pastime for us. So we see in this relationship between Prahlad Maharaj and Narsingadev this feeling of abhay, of fearlessness. So when a father throws a child in the air, then while the child is up, suspended in the air, the child is in a life-threatening situation. If the father doesn't catch, the child falls. The child can hurt himself. The child definitely doesn't know how to fly. And the child that is a few feet tall is now maybe 9 to 10 feet up in the air. But what is the child doing? The child is laughing. He's in ecstasy. Why? Because he knows that his father is going to catch him. So he's not worried about that he will fall or hurt himself. All that he is doing is enjoying the relationship with his father being manifest at that time. So if we were to extract the essence, that is the essence of the relationship between the Lord and his devotee, that is manifested in this pastime. That from our perspective, we see Prahlad Maharaj going through so many trials and tribulations. But if you read the Bhagavatam, you will not see Prahlad Maharaj lamenting at any point. You will not see any fear or uncertainties in his demeanor, because he has that confidence that the Lord is there to protect him. So, having established that as a reference, let's look at some of the more specifics that we can observe. So, the more pervasive aspect of it is this sense of dependence on Krishna. That Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ki. If Krishna is there to protect you, then who is there that can harm you? And of course, if Krishna wants to harm you, nobody can protect you. So, first life lesson is when to take to spirituality. So, when does Prahlad Maharaj take to spirituality? While he is in the womb of his mother. So, even before he was born, Prahlad Maharaj was listening to the preachings of Narad Muni. So, it is never too early for us to take to spirituality. Sometimes people have this conception that when we retire, then we'll take to Krishna consciousness. So right now, your ashram dharma is that you have to be in this world. You have to be one with the world. Fight with the forces that are around you. Succeed. Leave your mark. And then when you're retired, then you take to spirituality. So what's the problem with that approach? The problem is that after having spent most of your life living it in a certain way, it is difficult to reinvent yourself. The older that you get, the more difficult it is for you to reinvent yourself. So this is one of the conversations that are even happening at workplaces. So I was talking about my relationship with my work, and so I work in IT, where I'm probably maybe 5 or 6 technologies old. So when I started my IT career, I was a COBOL programmer, and then I was a C programmer, and then at some point, sometimes in the 90s, I stopped programming. And now they have a whole different set of technologies that are there, which I barely understand. And and then the focus is that adapt yourself, learn new technologies. And I'm like, I'm too old to learn new technologies. That I can barely remember what I had learned earlier on. Far more to learn new things. Because it's not that. So it's not just me like being senile or slow. It's more systemic. And Pat Prabhu can attest to it. There are companies in India that are now systematically culling or firing people who have like 10-15 years of experience, because they want people who are young, or they want the CXOs. But this whole senior middle management level, that's like a overhead. The ROI is very low on them. It's human nature. It's it is what it is. So even in the areas where we have worked, it's difficult for us to continue to readapt yourself. Can you imagine you live your entire life you're enjoying the senses, living in a certain way, and then today you get your retirement clock, retirement watch, and then now you are doing Nirjan Bhajan? Not going to happen, right? So that's the lesson Prahlad Maharaj gives, that it's never too early. It's also never too late. That's also true. Jiva Goswami, he mentions this in Bhagavad Sandarbha, that it's never too late to take to Krishna consciousness. So he gives this example of different devotees who have successfully taken to spirituality at different points of time. So he starts with Prahlad Maharaj, before he was born. Dhruv Maharaj, when he was a young boy of 5 years old. Amrish Maharaj, when he was a youth. Dhritarashtra, when he was old. Khatvanga, when he was moments away from his death. Ajamil, when he actually had died. And then he talks about the pastime of Maharaj Janak, where even after death, so Maharaj Janak, when he was going to the spiritual world, he is stopped by the hellish planets. And just because of his presence, the people over there felt very enlivened to take the Lord's name. So he says, even after death, when one is in the hellish planet, even then. So one can take to it anytime. It's so potent. Best to take to it is, so what is the best time to take to it? The best time is now. So one should not think that, well, I'm no longer in the womb of my mother, so too late for me, or I'm no longer 5 years old, too late for me. And one should not also think that I'm too young. I have so many years for me to do my work or bring up my family. So the best time is now. That's one of the first lessons that we get from the pastimes of Maharaj Prahlad. Second is the second is not really the importance of association, because that has been demonstrated, but how to deal with association. So Prahlad Maharaj is once asked this question that both you and your mother had heard the preachings of Narad Muni for 36,000 years. So for the time that Hiranyakashipu was performing austerities, they were in the ashram of Narad Muni in Madhuban. And Narad Muni, being a pure devotee, that's what he was doing. He was doing Krishna Katha. So both Kayadu was hearing it and Prahlad Maharaj was hearing it. Now Kayadu at that time was a young woman. So her senses were more active. Prahlad was just in the womb. But then why did not Kayadu reach the same destination or have the same dependence on the Lord? And then Prahlad Maharaj says that because of her association with her husband. Now, Prahlad Maharaj also had association with his father, but the difference was that he did not confuse proximity with association. So when Kayadu came back in contact with her husband, she took her husband's association, which essentially either covered or made her forget the lessons that she had learned from Narad Muni. Prahlad Maharaj was also in the proximity of his father, but he did not take his association. So Prahlad Maharaj was in the context of the people that he was interacting with. So he exemplifies this perfection of how best to associate in different circumstances. So when he was associating with his friends who were favorable to him, he was giving them association. So he was preaching them, you should do this, you should do, etc. When he was associating with his teacher, Chandamark, he was in the mood of neutrality, because they had the position of being his teachers. So whatever question they would, actually in the Bhagavatam it is said that when they would ask him questions on science or political intrigue and all that, he would answer them. So that was his mood, that he would interact with them on a superficially cordial way. And with his father, because he was a well-wisher of his father, so he was in this mood of being his well-wisher. So he was, of course, not preaching strongly to his father. He was answering the questions that his father was asking him, truthfully. But he would not go there and would say that, look here, Hiranyakashipu, you need to start chanting Hare Krishna every day. So he till the time he was not asked, he was okay. But when Hiranyakashipu started asking him, then he would give the answers truthfully. So in the face of adverse association, Prahlad Maharaj, he kept his distance. In where the association was favorable, then he gave his association. And where there was a potential for him to learn, he took the association. So when he was with Narad Muni, he was taking association. When he was with the boys in the Gurukul, he was giving association. And when he was with his father or Chandamarg, then he was in this mood of neutrality, of neither giving nor taking association. So in the same way, we see that in our own lives and different spheres of our life, we interact with different kinds of people. When we are in the earlier stage, and I know that certainly happened in our lives, we wanted to make everybody Krishna conscious. So whomever we would meet, we would say that you should do this, you should chant, you should stop eating meat, you're spoiling your life, you're going to hell. Because of that, we lost a lot of relationships. It's not that we made a lot of devotees. No, we just lost a lot of relationships, especially in the context of those who were close to us, because we were associating with them, our family members, our friends over here. So family is family. What do you do? They figure out that we are bound to them. So you resume a semblance of it. But there were so many friends that we lost completely because of that. Now, maybe it was not a terribly bad thing, but if there was a potential over there to influence them, we deprived ourselves of their potential. So knowing when to give association, knowing when to take association, and knowing when to be like a tortoise and withdraw your limbs and just be in a protective mode is important for us. So in the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, the importance of association is emphasized as the single most potent aspect of one making devotional advancements. So considering the fact that it is so important for us, it is also, so just like there is a medicine that is very potent, it is important to take it as per prescription. It can do a lot of good, it could do a lot of harm also. So in the same way, important for us to be careful and reflective when we are interacting in a larger circle. In an ideal environment, perhaps, we can interact only with devotees, and there are fortunate people who are in that situation. But even among devotees, there are different grades of devotees. So the same principle applies there also. But for most of us, our association with devotees is actually limited. Most of the time we are associating with those who are either not subscribing to Krishna consciousness or to a different flavor of spirituality. So it is important for us to discern this difference and then accordingly tune our mode of association. So I have 10 points. So I'll go over 5 points, and then I'll take a break, see if we have some discussions, and then resume the other 5 points. So the third point is the execution of bhakti. So bhakti at the end of the day is a way to re-establish a relationship with the Lord. So you don't see Prahlad Maharaj doing deity worship. You don't see him doing Tirth Yatras. What is he doing? He's essentially practicing Smaran, which is meditating on the Lord. So the lesson for us is that depending on our time, place and circumstance, we should execute that flavor of bhakti that is most potent for us. In one of the lectures I was hearing, the point was made that when Krishna was about to appear, then Kamsa, he wanted to capture Krishna and keep him in a prison cell. Now, not only did Krishna not allow himself to be captured and kept in a prison cell, he also killed Kamsa later on. So for the people who try to restrict Krishna to a particular conception, that either you do bhakti this way or you're fallen. So Krishna doesn't like being imprisoned, and you will definitely not attract his favorable side. So Prahlad Maharaj, that's why he says that there are 9 angas of bhakti: Shravana Kirtan, Smarana Vandan, Padya Sevan Das, Pujan, Sakhijan, Atma Nivedan. Talks about this 9 limbs. So one can execute one's bhakti based on what inspires one the most, and also what is most suitable. Now, in our day and age, the chanting of the holy name is the most potent. So we do that as sustenance. So just to sustain our life, to keep ourselves alive in Krishna consciousness, we chant the prescribed number of rounds. But after having guaranteed our survival in Krishna consciousness, there are many ways in which we can nourish ourselves. Sometimes people will approach one person and say, Prabhu, if you are not doing book distribution, then there is no hope for you. And then they will give you several quotes that how book distribution is this, distribution is that, and if you're not doing it, big problem. Or somebody will say, Prabhu, if you're not doing kirtan or sankirtan, big problem for you. Or somebody will say, if you're not worshipping the deities, big problem for you. And for each of them, there are many quotes from Prabhupada and different scriptures that says that this is the way. And they're all right. None of them are wrong. So they're all right. The same Srila Prabhupada is glorifying book distribution, he is glorifying Harinam, he is glorifying deity worship, and he is glorifying for a mother to take care of her child. So the lesson here is that one needs to find that which will help the person grow healthy. So we stay alive by chanting. That's our oxygen. That keeps us breathing. But after having assured that yes, we are alive, how do we nourish ourselves? How do we become robust? We need to find something that inspires us. Whether it is study of Shastras, whether it is preaching or book distribution or deity worship or cooking prasadam or Vaishnav seva, whatever it is. In Vrindavan, Prabhupada was once standing, and there was this old lady, and she was getting water from Yamuna for the deities. And she did that service every day, without fail. And Prabhupada was glorifying her, that this is what bhakti is. And one would look at it, that you look at her, all she is doing is going to the river and getting some water. But she was doing it with so much of commitment that he never missed a day. Very regular at the same time. So essentially, it was an expression of her innate commitment to that service, rather than the service itself. So no service is big, no service is small. We were discussing, and when we were doing Ramayana Katha, we were discussing the pastime of the building of the Shetu Bandhan, the bridge. And Hanuman was picking and throwing big boulders, and there was a squirrel that was throwing small pebbles. And Lord Ram, he was appreciating both their services. Because from his perspective, the big boulders are also pebbles. The planets are pebbles, the universes are pebbles. So not much difference. What service can we do? But what he's appreciating is the spirit of the service, in which we are attempting to serve him. So from our practical perspective, we need to do that. We need to find something that excites us. Some people love kirtan. Some people love playing instruments. Some people love to serve Vaishnavas. So we find something and we do that. Fourth is this sense of dependence on Krishna. So we see that Prahlad Maharaj, we never see him asking anything from Krishna. So when he was in life-threatening situation, we don't see him saying, Krishna, please protect me. Now he was meditating on Krishna, that was his mood, but not that he was asking something from Krishna. The reason that he was not asking anything from Krishna was because he knew that he was already protected. So why ask for something that you already have? Even when Lord Nrsimhadev, he offered him that ask for a benediction. And Prahlad Maharaj says, nah, I'm okay. Don't really want anything. And then he, in the conversation, it looks like he's almost chastising Nrsimhadev. He's saying that, why are you interfering in my relationship with you? I don't want anything. Why are you asking me to take? I'm a servant. I'm happy in serving you. That's my happiness. So I'm perfectly satisfied. I don't need anything. So the mood of a devotee is that Krishna will give what you need. And Krishna will, yes, Krishna will give you what you need, and Krishna will take away that which you want, but you don't need. So we have so many wants that we want a big house or cars or wealth or whatever it is. And then we have needs also. We have needs to survive. We have needs to be in relationships. We have a need to be loved. We have a need for happiness. So the conception in which the devotee executes his devotional life is that Krishna is always there to take care of my need. And whatever that he is not taking care of is my want. So it's not relevant anyway. It is superfluous. So it is a good thing. It's a good way for us to also make this distinction between our needs and our wants. Because in our mind, it is difficult to make that distinction. It is difficult for the eye to see itself. It is difficult for us to be objective about ourselves. So for us, our want is our need. That I absolutely do want this vocation. This is of paramount importance. I need it. But one way for us to make this distinction is to make the distinction between how is Krishna reciprocating with us. Whatever that he is giving us, he is taking care of our needs. Whatever he is not giving us, it is our want. So it is superfluous. If we go after that, it will be just precious. It will be lot of effort with returns that either will not satisfy or will give you the sense of transient satisfaction. The fifth point, and I'll pause after that, is this position of Prahlad Maharaj in relationship to his friends at the Gurukul. So he's a small boy of 5 years, but he's preaching. So the point that is made is that anybody and everybody can preach. Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of demons. His father was the king of the demons. He was doing a lot of very, very demoniac activities. He had displaced all the demigods. He had taken over all the duties. He had stopped the worship of Lord Vishnu. So many demoniac activities he was doing. And an extremely powerful personality. And here there is Prahlad Maharaj, a 5-year-old boy, born in a demoniac family of the king of demons. And he's preaching. So if he can preach, so can we. What was the result of the preaching of Prahlad Maharaj? That he was given complete protection by the Lord. This is a special mercy that the Lord extends towards those who help him to spread his name or his teachings. He gives them protection. There are so many pastimes where we see how those who are preaching in the service of the Lord are always protected. The most glaring example is that of our Srila Prabhupada. That everything about him, it basically challenges our credibility. That how can, when you tell that, somebody is amazed that person at that age with no money, no resources, was able to do so much. And then if you look at the more details in his pastimes, then you see that he exposed himself to so many dangers. Whether it was health-wise, on the ship, later on also he had a heart attack. He was living earlier on in the company of people who were drug addicts. The person that he was sharing a room with, he actually attacked him, wanting to harm him. And later on also, when ISKCON was established, from so many sides, there were attacks. In India, they would say ISKCON is an arm of the CIA. There were so many attacks from within ISKCON. There were deviations, fall downs, infighting. And Srila Prabhupada, he sustained all that. 70s, 80s, person in advanced stage, poor health, but he sustained all that. And that's the protection of the Lord. So Krishna protects all his devotees. But he has a special place for those who are preaching on his behalf. And that is the form of Lord Nrsimhadev, very anxious to protect. And we can preach in so many ways. We can preach by speaking. We can preach by not speaking. By just acting in a way that inspires the others. It's like Bhakti Siddhanta says that one should preach 24 hours a day. And once in a while the person should speak. So I think whether it was, we were talking about it maybe a few weeks ago about the three aspects of interaction, the logos, the pathos, and the ethos. Right? We were saying that when you speak to somebody, their logos is the logic. How much sense do you make to the person? Can you defeat him in an argument? That is logos. Pathos is how much of your own energy are you manifesting there? How excited are you about it? And then ethos is how much do you represent what you are saying? And the understanding is logos is the weakest. Very difficult to convince somebody based on logic. Because for every argument you have, the person can have a counter argument. And even if you defeat the person in argument, it does not mean anything. The person just goes away disgruntled. Pathos is a little bit more. The person says you have a lot of passion. He says, oh, this person is convinced about it. But it lasts for a while and then it goes. While that memory is there, while the person is in your association, then that effect of that passion is there. But ethos, which is when the person sees that this person who is telling me something is living by what he's telling me. He's telling me that if you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you will not be affected by the adversities around you. And then later on he sees that the person is actually not being affected by the adversities. Or the person is actually not indulging in Gramya Katha or criticizing other people. Or the person actually is equibalanced and composed. And then he says, I see that whatever this person is saying is making a big difference in his own life. So there is something to it. And that is the most powerful way of preaching. So that is why before prachar comes achar. That before you speak, you act in that way. And in fact, within prachar is achar. That there is no prachar without achar. That unless you have internalized the values, it is not possible for you to externalize it, to speak it to others. So let me stop here. The 5 points that were made so far. When to take Krishna consciousness? As soon as possible, but now is the time. How to deal with association? Depending on the nature of the association, we either give or take or stay neutral. How to execute bhakti in a way that is conducive to our swabhav. The mood of complete dependence, that Krishna will fulfill all our needs regardless of our wants, and the potency of preaching and when to start preaching. So let me unmute all of you and then we can see if there is any comments or... Okay, you're all unmuted.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hi, Bol.
Yeah. I had a similar experience when I initially joined ISKCON during Philadelphia. I used to always feel I'm not there to preach anyone because I don't consider myself itself a devotee. You are not at that stage where I can sit somebody because if I'm not completely following it. But yet I see Prabhupada always encourage people to preach even though they may not be at that stage, but it's always it's like a self-learning also. When you tell something, we also learn by ourselves, right? So
True.
Again, question is same, when you start preaching,
So I think the question should be not really when you start preaching, because when you start taking to Krishna consciousness, you're starting to preach at that very moment. Your lifestyle is changing. What you're expressing in terms of your actions and your words is basically a manifestation of what you have learned and what you're practicing. So the important thing is to establish the cadence of that preaching. So we see that in Prahlad Maharaj. that when he saw that the environment was conducive, he was a very, very forceful preacher. You look at the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, he's very, very forceful. He's saying that, basically your life is all going to waste. 25% of the time you're sleeping, otherwise you're doing this, your life is waste, you're living like an animal, etc. And the best thing for you to do is to follow. But that's because that environment was conducive to it. In another environment, he was preaching by Tattva Gyan. When his father was asking him, he was just talking about tattvas. This is the nature of the soul. This is the relationship of the soul with the body. This is what the Lord is doing. And in another context, he was not saying anything. He was just quiet. So I think the mood of humility that you say is very important. But that mood of humility should somehow be blended into this desire to preach. That we have to preach. We are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are followers of Srila Prabhupada. We have to preach. That is what really connects us to the parampara. But just as that is important, how we preach is also important. Right? We preach in a way that it sustains our Krishna consciousness and it helps others to take to spirituality. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Prabhu.
So, Prabhu, I have a question. When you started preaching, did you find yourself feeling uncomfortable because you're starting to preach? And now you've been preaching for a while, so you might have gotten used to it. But when you started, did it make you feel uncomfortable? Like, am I going to be talking everything that's correct? Am I going to be talking something that I might have misunderstood when I read the scriptures or when I heard it from my Guru Maharaj? So did you not have any doubts like that?
Well, so I think so you're talking in the past tense, and I'm talking in the present tense. Yes, the answer to that question is yes. That is there. There are two things that are maybe to some extent mitigating. One is that you preach to the extent of your realizations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if I were to sit here and preach about Rasa Leela, it'll be difficult for me to justify it to myself. It is beyond my realizations. Now we could definitely have a discussion on it based on the purport of Srila Prabhupada, which is something different. But if I come to you and I say that you have to develop Gopi Bhav, I have no idea what Gopi Bhav is. How can I ask you to develop Gopi Bhav? Right? So you preach to the level of your own realizations. Then you preach to the level of your aspirations. So I say to you, Pyali, when you chant, you should chant with full concentration. Right? Which I have told you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean that I chant with full concentration? The answer is no.
But you aspire.
But I would like to. I'm sincerely aspiring to do that. So it's not something where I am, but it is something where I'm sincerely trying to do that.
Okay.
So the second part is also important. And the third is that you preach according to what you have heard.
Mm-hmm.
So Srila Prabhupada would give this example with different analogies, that you just think about, there's a fruit up in the tree, somebody has broken that fruit and passing it down to different people who are sitting on different branches of the tree. You got that fruit, you pass it on. So you didn't create that fruit, you didn't manufacture it, you received it, and as you receive it, you pass it on. So based on what we hear, Srila Prabhupada has given us, based on what he has heard from his Guru Maharaj, from the parampara, and as long as we stay within that confine, we are safe. Now, it does not mean that anything outside that is not bona fide, right? Because we are just one of the sampradayas. There is the Sri Sampradaya, there are other sampradayas. Even amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, there are
Something is interfering in the picture.
there are different conceptions. So just because it is different does not mean that it is invalidated or bogus. But because we are at this point where we are growing roots, we are learning, then there is safety in staying within your sandbox. So that's the safety that we get by staying within the confines of what we are taught, right? So we don't speculate a lot. We don't get bewildered by one sampradaya says one thing, or other sampradaya says the same thing but slightly differently, and then what will be the result is that we'll try and develop a third conception that is our own, which is probably incorrect. So if we do it with these three considerations, that you preach according to your realizations, your aspirations, and according to your learnings, then there is a lot of safety in there, and ultimately there is mercy. I remember the first time I was asked to give a class, and I talked to Guru Maharaj. I said, I can't really give a class because in the audience there are so many devotees much more senior to me. There are Prabhupada disciples there, and it'd be difficult for me to sit in the Vyasthan and speak to them. And Maharaj was saying, he was sharing his own experience that when from a brahmachari he became a sannyasi, then things changed. Because as a brahmachari, the prominent mood is to give obeisances. As sannyasi, everybody is giving obeisances to you. Mm-hmm. So he says that it just changed. That, I would walk into the temple, everybody was giving me obeisances. And he says it was confusing to me. And then he spoke to whoever he spoke to. He didn't tell me the names. But he said that what I understood was that I am simply representing my Guru Maharaj. And everything that I am getting is on behalf of my Guru Maharaj. So when you sit on the Vyasthan, you represent your spiritual master. And if somebody is giving you obeisances, they're not giving obeisances to you. They're giving obeisances to the fact that you represent your spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Mahaprabhu, and you're praising Krishna at that time. So that way, that whole sense of that, yes, this person is giving obeisances to me, so I must be really important. I must be a very elevated person. So that kind of goes away. Rukmini Mataji was sharing with me that she had heard it personally, that when people would come and glorify Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada would glorify Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he was taking that glorification and he was passing it on to his Guru Maharaj actively, almost in real time. Somebody would say, Prabhupada, you're great, and then he would say, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is great. So that mood of not holding on to anything but passing it on, it kind of helps. It helps settle you down, because pride weighs you down. And in our situation, we are very susceptible to it. Very easy for us to get contaminated by it. Okay, that helps?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But, yes. But Prabhu, when you gave this lecture, the vision that I was having is kids when they play the game telephone, the game telephone, where you whisper something to the person next to you, and they whisper something to the person next to them, and then you hear what the sentence is finally, when the end person says it. So that is
that is the asampradaya. That the message comes in as something and it comes out as completely something else.
Something else.
Even that is going on. Prabhupada would say, right, there are 2,000 commentaries on Gita, and they're all talking about different things. So where is all that coming from? That is the telephone effect. Somebody heard Krishna is God, and you are a part and parcel of Krishna, and the other person heard that you are God, and the third person heard that everybody is God. So by the time the message comes out, it is like Krishna is not God, but you are the God, and Krishna is a God within you. And so there are so many interpretations of Gita. So even that is going on. All the more important for us to carefully hear what we have been spoken, and stay within that. Now, of course, it does not mean that we become parrots. It does not mean that we just, stay open quote, Prabhupada said, close quote, or, Guru Maharaj said and close quote. It's not that. It's that whatever we speak is based on the teachings. Everybody has the right to have their realization. Prabhupada said to his disciples, you should write books. Now one might say that, why is he asking them to write books? Isn't Prabhupada's books enough? They are enough. But having realization is a part of making devotional advancements, right? Somebody once asked Prabhupada that your Guru Maharaj has written a commentary on Gita. Why are you writing a commentary on Gita? And Prabhupada said, that is my commentary on Gita. Now, of course, he was not diminishing the position of his Guru Maharaj, but he was saying, I have the right to my realization. But of course, his realizations are completely in line with that of his Guru Maharaj and the Parampara. Yeah?
Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have one question. Like, as we see that there are different ways of getting bhakti and following, like, as we said that there is no starting or end point for bhakti, we can do at any point, and different ways of doing bhakti. And like, it appears to be so simple, but still it looks like it is simple, but it is complicated sometimes. Like, so is it like we make the bhakti complicated, or like as people we know that, or Krishna gave a simple procedure of like Smaran, Kirtanam, Marjanam, and like we make it more difficult for us and everybody else?
It's a very good question, Mataji. So I think I'm going to give you like an and this is not me like trying to steer away from giving you a deterministic answer. I'm going to give you a bit of an ambiguous answer, that it is both. So yes, we make it difficult, and yes, it is difficult. So how do we make it difficult? Different ways. We make it difficult because we don't have sufficient faith in the process. We make it difficult because we take shelter somewhere else, and we are trying to, we are trying to go cross an ocean with 1 foot on one boat and 1 foot on another boat. It makes things difficult. Sometimes devotees' life is more difficult than those who are gross materialists. They're just on one boat. Now maybe that boat is going someplace which may not be good, but they're just on one boat. Devotees, they have feet on two boats. So they cannot enjoy materialism fully. They cannot practice spirituality fully. Right? There's this saying in Hindi, right? Dhobi ka kutta na ghar ka na ghat ka, right? So once devotee was actually sharing that with me. He said, I feel like that. Before I became a devotee, I was happy. I didn't know about anything, and I was happy. I was enjoying myself. We were having parties and whatever it is. Ever since I became a devotee, for a while I was happy. But now I can't chant my rounds properly. I constantly feel I'm not doing enough to serve my Guru Maharaj. And then I'm not able to enjoy the material aspect. I feel guilty. Anytime I go out and watch a movie or eat in a restaurant or do something that is supposedly not Krishna conscious, so he said, I don't see happiness anywhere else. And the reason is because you have a foot on two boats. So you take the feet off the other boat and put it on the first one, then naturally the tension will go down there. So that is where we come in. That's how we make it we make it difficult. The reason we have the foot on the other boat is because we are not confident that the first boat is going to take us across the ocean. So we are hedging our bets there. In one of the lectures, I think this was I believe it was in New Vrindavan, where the devotees, they're talking about their troubles to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada keeps asking, what is the problem? What is the problem? And he finds it difficult. He says, Krishna consciousness is so simple. What is, I can't chant. What is the problem? Why can't you chant? My mind is not there. What's the problem? Why can't your mind be there? So from his vision, it is, like you were saying, it's simple. You chant your rounds, you eat prasadam, you worship the deity. You live a simple life. How much more simple can life be? What's the problem? So problem is us, that we make it difficult. The second aspect is that it is difficult. So if you take a step back and then you see what is it that you're trying to do, you're trying to change the course of something that has been going on for millions of lifetimes. For so many lifetimes, we have been in the cycle of enjoying our senses, trying to lord it over everything that is around us. This is not just for the 20, 30, 50 years that we have been in this body, but this has been going on we are nityabaddhas. This has been going on since time immemorial. So can you imagine the amount of momentum that you have gathered? Right? There's a train that is going and it is going at 100 miles per hour. Can you imagine the amount of momentum? We are trying to change that. So it is difficult. Not only is that difficult, think of it this way, that you are swimming upstream. Everybody around you, or almost everybody around you, is basically going one way. Everything around you is designed to go in that direction. That the purpose of life is for us to identify what is the material thing that will satisfy us the most and go after it. That is success. Everybody is teaching you and doing it day after day. Not one person, not two people, but billions of people. Not one day, but 2 days, but they are doing it consistently. So think of it that there is a stream that is going full force in a direction, and then you are this small fish in that stream, and then you say, not for me. I'm going to turn around and swim upstream. Right? And that fish itself has been going downstream for such a long time. Right? So it is not only trying to reverse its own momentum, it's reversing the momentum of everything that is around it. So that is why we should consider ourselves to be very, very fortunate. As devotees, we sometimes fall into this notion that we are not doing enough, we are failures, and where will we end up? It's okay to challenge yourself. We don't want to be complacent, but not to the point where you beat yourself to a pulp and say that forget about it. Since I'm not going to be a good devotee, let me be a good materialist. Right? It's a defeating proposition. But understanding the dynamics that is going around, that is important. It is going to be difficult. The process is going to be difficult, but the matter of fact is that all this that we are doing, we are not doing on our own. We have the mercy that is descending, that is helping us. So we are not the fish that is turning around and going upstream all by itself. We are basically trying to get onto a boat that is going upstream. And that boat is powered by the mercy of our Guru Maharaj and Mahaprabhu and Krishna. We are trying to with our hands hold on to it and then go for the ride. So it has been done. It is being done. and it will be done by us, but we just need to be patient.
Prabhu, several stories of like Dhruv Maharaj and like some devotee trying to give prasadam to the deities just for the sake of giving, and the other one came and just told him that please eat it because my mother-in-law told that you have to eat it and you eat it every day, so you please eat it, something like that. Or one farmer who was always telling Lakshmi Narayan, and one day he forgot the name Lakshmi Narayan. He started saying Lapsinder. Then also Krishna came and gave him darshan, saying that you were telling my name each and every moment. So is this the karma? Is this the like their devotion from the last several janmas that had gathered? That's why Krishna gave them darshan.
I don't know that particular pastime, but the point that you're making is valid.
Right.
That yes, that just like the momentum of karma carries through, more than that, the momentum of bhakti carries.
Okay.
Because karma is expendable. Like it's like money, you put in your bank, you spend it, it's gone. But karma is like, bhakti is like you put the money and it never goes away. It only increases there. So you're right. It's the momentum of bhakti. It grows and grows and grows, and we see that in ourselves and around us also. That there are some people that take to Krishna consciousness so easily and so quickly. Right. You see that in Prabhupada's life, right? There are people who just saw Prabhupada once, they gave up their lives. They left their jobs, they left prestigious positions, they left their conception of hippiehood or whatever it was, and they took to the process. Because they were, of course, it's potency, but they were continuing. They were continuing their bhakti from the previous. Even in our cases, there were so many people that get preached to. Some people take to it, some people remain neutral, and some people become averse to it. Right? So why do the people who take to it? Because they already have that sukriti in them. They have already developed that attraction, and this is just a wake-up call. It's a reminder, and then they take to it. And depending on wherever they left it, some people take to it and they just take to it. Some people take to it and slowly they make. So all that is based on what is our desires and how much we have practiced in our previous lives.
Thank you very much.
Prabhuji, I have one question, if you have time.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, so I was just understanding from different, I was reading through Srimad Bhagavatam, and it talks about different devotional services like blessing, and worshipping, praying, association with devotees. And then it mentions about hearing. Basically, hearing has been as the most potent form of devotional service. And then you mentioned something about mercy of Guru Maharaj. And at the same time, also reading another chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam, it mentions about that the one person can only, any devotion service one can approach Krishna is through the dust of a pure devotee, basically. Unless he doesn't have the blessing, he can reach to the devotional stage. So my question is, since you mentioned about mercy of Guru Maharaj, is hearing considered to be kind of a blessing of Guru Maharaj, especially for devotees who have not been initiated or not been bona fide? That's something I wanted to know.
Is what considered to be I missed a little part of what you're saying.
Hearing, basically.
Hearing. Okay. Yes.
From devotional service point of view, especially people who are not initiated.
Yes.
From understanding, having the blessing, from dust of a pure devotee.
Yes.
That's how we can connect to Krishna. And this example was given about Vrindavan, people go to Radharani's temple, and that's how they pray to Radharani first, so they can get in, contact with Krishna. Basically, the channel through which they can get association, pure association with Krishna.
Right. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So that's an excellent question. So so what makes us suitable to receive the mercy is when we follow the instructions. So so as you had mentioned, that Shravan is one of the most potent form of bhakti, right? So when we are executing bhakti in the mood of Shravan, then we are essentially, what we are doing is we are accepting and acting upon that instruction. So that basically opens our heart to the mercy, to receiving that mercy that connects us to the parampara, to the disciplic succession. Initiation is being formally connected to a devotee, so that the devotee, that particular devotee, can personally guide you in your spiritual life, and also connect you to the parampara there. So let's take the example of so you're reading from the Bhagavatam. Through the process of Shravan, you're connected to the parampara. You're availing yourself of the mercy, and definitely spiritual advancement is being made. But what happens if you have questions? Right? Who do you go to? What happens if you read a verse and you say, I don't understand this verse, or how do I apply it in my life? Right? So Prabhupada would say that the role of the Guru is to apply the teachings of the scriptures according to your specific situation. So Shivani has sent in the chat message for something that actually is kind of relevant. So she says that there is a saying in Bengali, Sthan, Kal, Patra, which translates to place, time and people. So when preaching, we have to keep in mind the place surrounding where we are, time, and the person we are trying to preach, whether he, she is open to it. Otherwise, we can deter them away from Krishna. So that is also what the Guru does. He preaches, he instructs according to Kal, Desh and Patra, according to time, place and circumstance. Because my situation is different from your situation is different from your neighbors, and his situation is different from another devotee. Right? Prabhupada would say that you may have access to the books in the library, you may read them, but to become a professional, you have to practice under the guidance of somebody who is already practicing. So you should look upon this as the next step. Right? So it's not that you're not receiving the mercy now, but how will that mercy manifest in your life? The mercy will manifest in terms of Krishna inspiring in your heart the desire to be formally connected, and it will also manifest in terms of Krishna making that arrangement for you. That somebody will come in your life that will inspire you, you will have this desire that let me take shelter of that person, and then it goes to subsequent levels of advancements. Right? The flip side also is important. So let's assume I'm initiated. So I have a spiritual name, I have a spiritual master. What does it mean? Nothing. Unless I'm following the instructions of my Guru Maharaj, it doesn't mean anything. Unless I am connected to him by the media of instructions that I ask him and I receive from it. Srila Prabhupada was once asked that you have so many disciples who fell down. What do you think about them? And Prabhupada said they were never my disciples. Even though they were initiated, Prabhupada gave them spiritual names, accepted them as a disciple, but he said they were never my disciples. Why? Because that initiation yajna is not the one that establishes the relationship. It formalizes the relationship, but what establishes the relationship is what you are doing right now, which is listening, trying to inculcate that in your life. But it needs to go to the level where, along with this, or in the same mood that you are hearing from the Shastras, the same mood you also hear from the person Shastra. And that should be a person so it said that's why the Guru should be a living Guru. The Guru who can actually be in your life to be there to answer your questions and to clarify. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other thoughts? Thank you for the discussion. So I'm just thinking in the context of the time, I won't be able to do the other 5 points justice. So we will cover them next week. And since it's almost just a few minutes, 7 minutes from 9, so I'll stop there. I'll stop again to see if somebody has any concluding thoughts.
Yeah, I have a few comments to make. First of all, thank you. It's been very, very deep learning for me, because I don't know anything. It's a little coincidence, but I don't know. It just helped me to understand that part a little better than what I understand right now. From the childhood, the attraction toward Krishna was always there because my mom would always narrate the stories so beautifully, particularly with the childhood of Krishna, right? That time there was no ISKCON or nothing like that because that's how we grew up in the family. I got to know about ISKCON much later in life. And of late, I go to a kind of a little bit of because you're from IT, you would understand when there is a problem, you try to look at the root cause of the problem and then try to solve the problem. So I was trying to look at, this whole ISKCON, the founder member, the great Prabhupada. And that just kind of amazed me because I didn't know so much about him, though I come very close to his place. And even today morning, I knew that I would come and attend this. It has been almost a non-stop behind the scene search. How did he do it? And in fact, I had decided to ask that question to you today. And before even I could ask, I saw a lot of things. You were talking in your own narration about him. Towards the end, you talked about, when he was in his 70s, came to America, no money, all that stuff. Very quickly you said that. And that's exactly what I was trying to appreciate in my own way during the daytime. Just reading a few things here and there. It was a very tearful realization. I mean, what kind of personality, sorry to use the word gentleman or whatever he was, right? That confusing world, that to coming to New York all the way from Bengal, and then doing it all by himself. And that must have been amazing. And obviously, I never had the opportunity to see him, or even I like that thing that you said. Guru has to be a living Guru. I really believe in that. Trust me, while you were talking, it's not a compliment. I don't know what it is. Your entire appearance to me was just looking like Prabhupada because I was so much thinking about him. I'm looking at everybody. And when you're speaking, it's like almost he's speaking to me. In your face, your whole articulation was just like as if it's coming from his mouth. There's a tremendous amount of resemblance. And I know I'm not drunk. I know that I'm not hallucinating. And it's more than a compliment. I'm speaking from here. And one thing that really, I'm trying to appreciate the essence of it. When you're narrating a story about Prahlad Maharaj, versus you're taking the essence out of it and giving it in an articulation which is your own articulation, because you talked about Prabhupada talking about Bhagavad Gita when so many people are talking. So that's my interpretation. I got a right to say because I have lived that, and which is so close to his guru. So when you are articulating something which is a present day scenarios, taking the essence from there, it's very powerful. I just want to let you know, at least to my ear, is very powerful. That can give you a tremendous amount of outreach to many people. And you talked about a point, right? We should preach and try to not break the relationship or not, don't force anybody to break away from his or her life to come and join this. But yet, some would join from the day one, some would get initiated internally from the moment they sit next to you or sat next to Prabhupada. So I think that's a very interesting experience. Just an experience. I know I'm not in a structured manner trying to articulate a script. The second part of it is that I just want to know, because you would have read so much, you would have heard so much. What is the one most interesting thing that Prabhupada, during his life, that would have just kind of made him realize that there was somebody behind him. Somebody, when I say, I'm sure the Krishna's blessings must be so much around him. Otherwise, how can he be so successful? To that extent where you are, is that Krishna's pastime? Is that, I mean, I don't see any other movement or a religion or a, whatever these things are, where one guy from that kind of corner of the world is able to come and create a love which is so profound and so widespread. It just fascinates me. And yet, there is that relate back to Krishna, which I was anyway, I had a tremendous fascination because I would always go back to my mom's story about Krishna than anybody else, because that is stuck in my head. That's stuck in because that's how we grew up when we were growing up. So I would request you to look at it. Give me your own experience of Prabhupada, because I just want to research on him a little more to just how profound that. I mean, how did he do it? And that too, at age 70, you talked about it. You said nothing is late, nothing is early. It is here and now. Don't say that you got a long runway to do it tomorrow or in retirement. That's what runs in my head, right? Because I don't do it. I said, okay, let me first finish my work and do my jobs, and then I'll probably come back here because it is interesting. It interests me. So my request would be that what is one thing of Prabhupada must be so deep that will just keep you silent. Don't ask a question. Will not just say, aha, oh, wow. This is like no questions are. All questions are asked by that experience. If you can relate, because you would have read so much about him, or you would have heard so much about him. That is my question. But amazingly, you have when you are talking from my video, and maybe when Prabhupada was 40 years old, that I'm assuming that's your age, he must be looking like you. Okay, that's okay. I just short of one number. That's fine.
1 decade, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Firstly, thank you for your kind words. It's a very good question, and thank you for your realizations. Very, very. I'm very touched by the sincerity of your realizations. So Prabhupada's life is chronicled in fair amount of details in a book called Leelamrita. It's a fairly thick book, but it makes it's one of those books that you can't put it down if you take it up. When I first got it, I was like, this is such a thick book. It'll take me forever to read it. But it's you keep wanting to turn the pages over. His life is like that. So Prabhupada himself talks about the one thing that had the most cataclysmic change in his life. So he grew up in a. Thank you, Ravi Prabhu. Prabhu is showing the book.
Wow. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So he grew up in a devotee family. His father was a Vaishnav. He was worshipping deities, very much like you were talking about your childhood. He grew up in an environment where Krishna Katha was done. The stories that he was told was Krishna stories. But then he went to college, he forgot all about it. And, he became more, at that time, because it was the time for independence, so he became more follower of Mahatma Gandhi, and, he was more leaning towards that. And then he met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he met him only once. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur looked at him and said that you should preach. He did not say to him that you should become a devotee, or he said you should preach. And Prabhupada internalized that for 11 years. So it made a big difference in his heart, but he kept it within his heart. At that time, he was starting his life. So he went on. He took a job. He resigned from that job. He started his own business in Allahabad, Prayag. So he was in that mood. But after 11 years, he again took shelter, more formally, of his Guru Maharaj, took initiation, etc. So one thread that you see in Prabhupada when he is sharing his own motivations, his own protection, is the fact that he is trying to follow the instructions of his Guru Maharaj. So the first instruction that was given by his Guru Maharaj, and the last instruction that he gave him, which was somewhere in, I think 1939, somewhere around that time, when he was getting ready, he was old, he was getting ready to leave his body, and then same instruction he gave him again: you print books, you preach. And after that, Prabhupada, that became his service to his spiritual master. And the point that I was making is exemplified in Prabhupada's life, that he took so many risks, but he always seemed to be protected. It's almost like, he's there over the edge, ready to fall off, and then something pulls him back. That he because he couldn't afford to fly from India to America, he came on a cargo ship.
Yeah.
Right? He had heart attacks on the ship.
Yeah.
Right? But he survived. He survived that. He was in New York all by himself, and then people who were favorable, they were more interested in a new experience. But they came and started helping him. At one point he was like, okay, I'm going back. Prabhupada would go and inquire about the times for the flights back. Because he was asking his own god brothers in India to help him either financially or by sending people. But that wasn't happening, and I'm an alone person, what am I going to do? And he's saying, okay, there is a flight that goes this time, that time. He was inquiring about that. And then Krishna started sending him. And Prabhupada once said to his disciples that you are not ordinary people. You have been sent here by my Guru Maharaj so that I can assist him. So he was so grateful to his disciples, because he did not look upon them just as those that had taken shelter of him, which they had, but he also looked upon them as the mercy of his Guru Maharaj, that the Guru Maharaj had carefully picked up. And Prabhupada disciples are special souls. When we see the amount of service they have done, we get a sense of how little we are doing. That, they gave up everything, successful lives, careers, so many, other aspirations they had, riches, opulences. They gave that all to serve Prabhupada, based on little bit of mercy there. So that's why Prabhupada would say that you have been sent here by my Guru Maharaj. So I think your realization kind of very nicely lines up with Dhaval Prabhu's realizations also. That, what made Srila Prabhupada special was the fact that he could take shelter of his Guru Maharaj so completely. And the fact that kept him protected, the fact that empowered him, that made him so potent, was that at all points of time, he was representing his spiritual master.
Yeah, the way you beautifully directed Prahlad, this story, you said it a demonic family. In spite of that, the complete trust and faith that he's always around me nothing can touch me, right? I'm nothing I need to ask, nothing I need, nothing I want. So that unconditional, undivided, 100%. So that the same thing probably even at the age of 70, when he must have been going through, I don't know, he must have experienced first time snow, because there's no word called snow near the place that he's born and brought up. To that level of, and that 70s, right? Like 60s or 70s.
65, he came in 65.
Okay, so that, my God. So America, I was not in America, but I know what it was happening those days.
Yeah.
In New York City, and his Bengali accent. I don't know how many Americans could follow that English in the beginning, and then just happening. Then when it starts happening, I think it just kept happening, right? It just kept coming at him, the blessings.
Yes.
In terms of the expansion of or the people really believing in it, and then coming and joining that. So the similarity that I was trying to bring is what you just said. Prahlad Maharaj at the age of 5, with that level of, and then that climax and verse, at the same time, I don't know how many thousand years later, somebody like, this happening in New York in 65, and then the whole thing happening worldwide, it just baffles him.
Yes, it is. It is, and it is also that we are connected to it.
Yeah.
Right. That is also, like I was talking to my son, and so he's supposed to start his residency in a week's time.
Yeah.
I said, don't go there. There's all these COVID people and all that who are coming, you might get infected. Right. And he was saying that, are you kidding me? I'm a part of history now. I can write this on my resume. That I was part of the COVID. I was on the forefront of fighting COVID. It'll be there on my resume for the remaining part of my career. This is an opportunity that I'm not going to let go of that easily. So we are that, right? We're connected to Prabhupada directly. How many people, future generations will say that, we knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah.
But we know somebody who actually sat next to Prabhupada and talked to him.
Wow.
So we are special that way. So thank you very much, all of you. We will stop, and do we have a volunteer, or all the children are doing? How's the Nursing Day prayer being done?